If you are doing research on what you should get for your first backyard barbecue smoker or looking to upgrade your current smoker, this video is for you. We're going to go over 5 different types of backyard smokers. We're going to talk about their pros and cons, cost, the fuel type, and we'll cover their difficulty of use, starting from super easy all the way up to advanced. So get out your notepad and let's get started. So before we pick out which smoker is going to be good for you in your backyard, it really helps understanding some basic terminology when we're talking about smoking, barbecue, and grilling. A lot of times you'll hear people say, hey, let's barbecue up some hamburgers and hot dogs, but the terminology there isn't correct. When we're talking about smoking, barbecue, and grilling, those all fall within certain temperature ranges. So when we're talking about smoking, that falls within the temperature range of 100 to 225. From 225 to about 300 is your barbecue temperature range, and anything above 300 and up is going to be grilling. So this video is mainly geared to, I want to do the 4 staples: ribs, brisket, pulled pork, and sausage. Shameless plug here, if you actually did want to learn how to do ribs, brisket, pulled pork, or sausage, do consider subscribing to this YouTube channel and I can walk you through all of that. So your first option as a barbecue smoker is going to be a pellet smoker. Now, cost-wise, a pellet smoker usually is going to fall between the $500 to $1,500 price point. Now, from the $500 to $1,500 range, they are pretty much universally going to work the same in how they operate, and the ones that are more expensive are just going to have upgraded features that kind of set themselves apart from all the other pellet smokers. Now, when talking about ease of use, this is as easy as it gets. This is going to be the easiest to operate out of all the 5 smokers we talk about today. Very simple to use. You pretty much turn it on, set the temperature you want just like you would in the oven inside your house, and then the rest is set it and forget it. Generally, again, this is just kind of like the average, you're going to find pellet smokers will run in the 150 to 500 degree range. Now, if they do have a sear function, which means you actually have access to the fire in the burn pot, you can hit certain temperatures of 900 to 1,000 degrees. But if you're just running it for barbecue, again, we're talking about the 4 staples, pretty much any pellet smoker can accommodate that smoking range. Now let's talk about fuel source. A pellet's fuel source is 100% hardwood pellets. You can find those pretty much at any barbecue store or your Home Depot or Lowe's, pretty much anywhere. Even grocery stores sell pellets. So now when looking at the pros and cons of a pellet smoker, there are a ton of pros. This is the perfect smoker if you are just starting out and getting your feet wet with backyard barbecue. In my eyes, the pellet smoker is a great option just because it is so easy to learn on. Generally, it's going to offer a lot of smoking and grilling space. And my favorite part is, since it's so set it and forget it, this will do a lot of my overnight barbecue where I can put on some brisket or pulled pork, set it on before I go to bed, and when I wake up in the morning, this thing has been running like a champ all night at whatever temperature I told it to. And then I just have to kind of carry it along for a few more hours in the morning, and then you can let your meat rest, and by either lunchtime or dinner time, you're eating some really good barbecue. The only con in my book when it comes to pellet smokers is because of the fuel source being wooden pellets, there is really no moisture content within the pellet. Sure, there are some smoke notes present. The #1 complaint I see on my channel for people who have been using pellet smokers for years is the lack of smoke flavor. All right, option #2 is getting a charcoal grill. And these hold a special place in my heart, not only that you can do grilling on it, but you can also do barbecue as well. But when looking at charcoal grills, they come in all shapes and sizes. Usually you're going to be in the $300 to $500 price point. So for entry cost, that's probably going to be the best out of all these 5. There is a higher learning curve jumping up from a pellet smoker because when using charcoal, there's kind of, you're now learning basic fire management and understanding how charcoal works, but you can get some really good flavors from here. Now, your fuel source is going to be charcoal, but you can also incorporate wood chunks and wood chips, and that's going to help out a little bit with the heat, but it's mainly there to provide a nice woody smoke flavor to the barbecue. So temperature range wise for a charcoal grill, you're usually looking at around 250 up to 600 degrees if you're basically having your meat directly over the coals. So now let's get into the pros and cons. And the pros are, this is again multi-use, great for grilling, great for barbecue. And then the cool thing is you can really set it up. You can do direct cooking, which is you put charcoal all over the bottom and then you just have 600-degree heat rising up. You can do two-zone method. There's a thing called reverse searing. There's another method called the snake method, and that's pretty much arranging your charcoal in a way around the base. You can light one end, and it will slowly, at around 250 degrees, burn through all the charcoal over a period of 7 to 8 hours. I would say the only con is grilling space when it comes to charcoal. When you're actually setting it up for either two-zone or you're setting it up for barbecue, it really limits the actual square footage of cooking space that you can do. So the only downside to a kettle is the actual size. All right, your next option is looking at an electric smoker. And just like the pellet smoker, you pretty much turn the dial to whatever temperature you want, and then it will just maintain that temperature. As far as costs go, I think electric smokers probably have the widest range in it that you can find them starting at 300, and then they can go up to about 2,000 bucks. So the fuel source is actually, it's built into it. It has a heating element. It's basically a rod that gets really hot, and that is going to determine the internal temperature of the smoker. And then to actually get smoke, you're going to use wood chunks and wood chips, and that is going to kind of smolder that wood to deliver the smoke flavor. As far as ease of use, very, very easy. Much like a pellet smoker, you can just put your wood chips in the bottom. It has a little basket, then you can turn it on, and then it's kind of pretty much set it and forget it. Now, the pros on this thing is this actually has the lowest temperature rating out of all the smokers we're going to be talking about today. It has the range from 100 to 250. So not only can this thing do really good barbecue temperatures, if you actually wanted to use this as like a holding oven, or if you wanted to do cold smoking, you could do it on here. When looking at fuel cost, it takes so little fuel to operate this thing. We're talking like 40 cents worth of wood chips will get you through an entire brisket cook. That is going to be the cheapest operational cost. So as far as its cons, 250 is as high as it goes. And because of its size, you know, when I'm doing briskets, I will have to trim a little bit more off to fit a brisket on, but other stuff like ribs, pulled pork sausage, that can handle fine. Your next option as far as a barbecue backyard smoker is either a drum smoker or a kamado style smoker. Now again, I am going to get some comments. Kamados are completely different than drums. Yes, they are different types of smokers, but they pretty much, in my book, run the same as far as letting temperatures in and controlling airflow. So when looking at the cost of a drum smoker or kamado style smoker, you're pretty much looking at 500 all the way up to about 1,500. As far as the learning curve, there is going to be a bigger learning curve to understand how to operate these things. Once you actually get that down, they're very, very easy to operate. It's mainly just understanding charcoal, how charcoal works, and then understanding airflow. So pretty much how a drum smoker or kamado style smoker works is you're going to have these vents. The vents are going to control your airflow. The lower the airflow, the lower the temp, the higher the airflow, the higher the temp. So once you have these things dialed in, how they operate is you can pretty much load up a charcoal basket, and then you pretty much get the charcoal going. Again, you don't want all the charcoal lit, just a little bit of it. And then once it comes up to a certain temperature you like, say 250, 275, almost close down the vents, just it's barely fueling it, and then it will run easily 10 plus hours at a certain temperature. So its fuel source is going to be charcoal. And then for charcoal, you could either use briquettes or lump. And then from there, you can also put in wood chunks and wood chips, and that is going to help with the smoking aspect of it. So the pros in my book is you get really great charcoal and wood smoke flavor off of a drum smoker, and just the aspect that they're really much set up to kind of like set it and forget it. I would say cons in my book is because of airflow, if you're opening the lid and then saucing something down, that will actually kind of change the airflow, and so temperatures can get away from you if you really don't understand how these things operate. Bigger learning curve on this. And then also, if especially drums and kamados, to replenish your fuel source kind of is a pain, just because you have to pull out all the grates to access the firebox. Now, what I do like about this Pit Boss Champion drum smoker is you actually can access the charcoal box from the side here, and that's kind of a game changer in that if you wanted to add more wood chunks, more fuel, you don't actually have to take all the grates out. So that is a definitely advantage to this specific drum smoker, but usually you kind of have to reach in and take everything out. And now option number 5 is an offset smoker. They are beautiful and they are heavy, good Lord. As far as cost goes, offset smokers can run anywhere from 500 degrees, and then the sky is the limit. I don't even want to put a generally, because they can get up into tens of thousands of dollars. Now, for the cheaper price point, you're going to run into more issues with chasing temperatures around just because of the thinner metal they use. So if you are actually looking at a backyard smoker and offset, I would look at making sure the steel is at least 1/4 inch thick. Now, its fuel source is going to be actual wood splits. So when it comes to smoke flavor, it's 100% wood, baby. It is so, so good. The learning curve on this one is probably the most difficult to get down, just because, again, with barbecue, you have that range, 250 to 300 degrees. But when you're actually doing wood smoking, if you don't run a clean fire when it comes to fire management, you can get dirty smoke, and all that hard work putting into your barbecue, you could just get really bad off flavors that aren't good. So there is a ton of babysitting it. If pellet smokers are set it and forget it, a offset smoker is going to be the complete opposite. You are not leaving the smoker. You're pretty much hanging out in the backyard, drinking beers. That's actually not a bad idea. So now let's get into the pros and cons. When it comes to smoke flavor, the offset is going to deliver the best traditional smoke flavor that you can get on your meat. The other thing is, because it is so heavy and the thickness of steel, this thing is going to outlive me, so I can give this smoker to my kids. They are built like a tank. Like if it's hailing in Texas, I'm hiding under this thing. And I would say the last pro is your backyard smells freaking amazing, even days after you use this thing. There's just something about that barbecue smoke that is just, it's invigorating. I mean, it gets your blood pumping. It is just, there's something about it. It's just so good. So whenever you pull up to your favorite barbecue joint and you're like, ah, it smells so good, you're smelling that wood. Now, the cons are going to be mainly price point. To get a good offset smoker, you're going to throw down. These are going to be the most expensive out of all the options. And the learning curve of learning fire management, how to get your fire going, how to maintain your fire, when to put more wood in. It's definitely a process. Since there is a learning curve to it, you can produce bad smoke with an offset smoker, and that will impart really kind of almost bitter smoke to your meat. So again, don't want to ruin an expensive brisket, and so you really have to make sure your fire management game is on point so that you're running a clean fire. So if your question now is, after looking at all those backyard smokers, what would be the best smoker for just starting out to learn how to do backyard barbecue? My recommendation would be going with a pellet smoker. The pellet smoker is going to have the easiest learning curve on how to use it. You could set this to whatever temperature you want and really dial in learning how to do backyard barbecue when it comes to prepping your meat, seasoning, doing whatever you need to do, and kind of honing in on your recipe. You know, I've been using pellet smokers for like the last 4 years. Started with the pellet smoker, and I really just over time and time, you learn how to kind of start out. You first make bad barbecue, and then your barbecue gets really, really good. And then the cool thing is, once you have those recipes dialed in, and you're like, man, I just wish it had just a little bit more smoke flavor, then you can then take all those recipes and apply it to the next upgrade, whether it's going to be a drum smoker or an offset smoker. You don't need to worry about the recipe anymore. All you need to worry about now is fire management and learning how your smoker works. Well, guys, thanks for watching. If you do have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. And if you did want to learn anything about Texas style barbecue, do consider subscribing. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Grill Sergeant out.